So, Kenneth, when you headed back tomorrow?
Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m.
Okay. Well, let's do this tonight for a prayer. We're going to pray for Kenneth because we don't get to see him. He works about 2 months, comes in for about 4 days, he's gone for 2 months again. And I know that's really hard on him.
Trying to change.
Yes, and Miss Maria and the family. So we're going to pray for Kenneth as we get started. Father, thank you this evening that we've come together. Thank you that we can study and we can grow, and we have your word, and we have your church. Thank you that we can pray for our brother that we miss so much when he's gone, and I know it's so much harder for him and his family. We pray that, Lord, you would just provide for them in every conceivable way, provide every opportunity that even above and beyond anything they can imagine that would come up so that, Lord, he could be home more and just help all of them and comfort them and give them an understanding of why this is happening in their life right now, because surely if you put us in a place, then you have something for us to do there, and we're going to trust that, Lord. You put us here tonight to study, so just open our eyes and ears, and we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so we're talking about the church. So if you have your paper, I think we're on page 6. Okay, so 6 is where we stopped last week. It'll be this slide right here on Constitution. All right, so we talked about the church. We're talking now about very specific ways we enact the biblical structure of a church right here where we are. And so one of the ways is certainly by our bylaws. As a nonprofit, we are required to have bylaws. Can't be a nonprofit not have bylaws. So that's essential. As a church, we also have policies. So we're going to talk about those 3 things. First of all, starting with the articles of incorporation, then the bylaws, and then the policies, because that's the 3 levels. All right. So some of you were, I guess, in some of those long meetings to revise our articles of incorporation and bylaws. Well, when you're a nonprofit, you are a 501(c)(3) corporation, and because of that, you have this opportunity to charter with the state. You have to charter with the state, in fact. And so that's what the articles do. They charter you with the state, and then it authorizes you to run yourself accordingly. And so our particular articles of incorporation call us a nonprofit corporation organized for religious purposes, and that we are chartered for the propagation of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So not only nonprofit, but specifically church nonprofit. Every church in Louisiana that has any bylaws that have any actual corporation status have the articles in some kind of format. Now, here's the problem without the articles. If you don't have the articles of incorporation, you know who's liable for everything? Everybody who's a member, right? Not only everybody who's a member, so if somebody gets sued, you get sued. Specifically, if you're a trustee, you've got a lot of problems. If you're an officer of that corporation and somebody got hurt on their property, let's just say that it's 4th of July and it's Tuesday night is the 4th of July. Nobody's here, nobody's been here all day. And somebody's out here at 11 o'clock shooting bottle rockets at each other, and somebody goes to the hospital and they're going to sue the trustees. Do you understand? You have to protect your assets and you have to protect the people. And that is one of the reasons why you do the nonprofit and why you do the corporation. Okay? So we are under that Internal Revenue Code. The basis of the organization is non-stock or membership basis. So guess what? Everybody who's on the membership roll are the people of the corporation. You are the corporation. And that goes right along with Baptist life as autonomous, self-ruling churches, certainly. So the membership, our articles say, will be open to all persons who express desire to become church members upon declaring their belief in the Lord Jesus Christ as Son of God, accepting Him as Lord and Savior, being willing to receive baptism by immersion. So our articles of incorporation actually tell how you become a member. Because otherwise, who is a member? You wouldn't have a way to know who's a member of the corporation. And so, anyway, so that is something. And so if you're on the church roll, this is applying to you. There's a way you terminate membership, and it's in the Articles of Incorporation. It's not as detailed as they are in the bylaws of the policy, but it actually tells us how you terminate membership, that you can transfer a request of membership to another church. That is one way. And so the church votes on that, and then that membership is transferred. If you die, obviously, you forfeit your membership, right? That doesn't mean you're not a member of the kingdom. You graduated, though, that's all. So we actually have probably, no telling how many Southern Baptist churches that still have people on their rolls that are dead, okay? And I can promise you, across the nation, in every kind of church, that's the case. Rolls and churches are enormous sometimes, and so, but we do not. We know that for a fact. Member joins another religious denomination, that means that their membership is automatic. So in other words, let's just say somebody wants to go and be a Methodist. Well, that's okay. That's up to them. But the thing is that they don't have to ask for a membership change because they're going to a different denomination. No membership change needed, okay? We just, once we know that, they let us know, they're simply taken off the roll, no big deal. Exclusion can happen by 2/3 of those present at a business meeting called for the purpose of voting somebody off of the roll. What would that mean is somebody in negligent sin who will not listen to wise counsel and repent, because we do have a biblical mandate to do that, and we have on top of that, we have articles, bylaws, and policies that also say that. And by the way, isn't it possible to be terminated from every other type of corporation? Absolutely. Why would it be any different? We have to be able to terminate people from our corporation, and we have to be able to decide who's a member of the corporation, or everybody is. I mean, you just walk in and say, hey, I'm a member. and then you actually have as much weight. This is really important in church life too. We don't do things by seniority membership, right? Can't say I've been a member here 45 years, and so I get, what I say goes. No, everybody, and the articles actually say it's equal weight. How long have you been a member, Ms. Penny?
Over 2 years.
How long have you been a member?
22 years.
22 years. There's a very, very vast difference in those two things. They have exactly equal weight of membership, though. It has nothing to do with how long. You have just as much say, you have just as much influence. Everybody has an equal partnership. And that is even according to our legal documents, okay? We are a corporation, so we have to assign trustees. We have our trustees here tonight. Except Barry. Barry's not here. Barry, Jeannie, Felix. Where's Felix? There. And I'm a trustee in the sense of basically name only. Okay, and so these are the guys. Now, here's the thing: being a trustee doesn't mean a whole lot of stuff here that you have to worry about. You can't get sued if you're a trustee. Remember, we're under that shelter, right? They don't have liability. They're basically people who sign documents on behalf of the church. They just have that legal authority. The way we're organized, that's it. That's all it is. You get to sign at the will of the church. Let's see, anything else here? Officers of the corporation shall be all current trustees. The trustees are elected annually by the church. So every year at the annual business meeting, we have several business meetings a year, but the annual one, this always comes up as trustees. If there's no reason to change, they normally let's just go with the people we've had, and nobody usually has a problem with it, okay? Because there's not a lot of legal stuff involved with it, most people don't really care who trustees here. I mean, in fact, if you're a trustee here, how long has it even been since you signed something? It's been since 2018 when we signed this. That's how long. So anyway, so that's a little bit about who we are. and our bylaws. We do have a registered agent, that is our recording secretary, that is Cindy as the treasurer, or the clerk, so if you are a clerk and an organization, she actually has a state registered office as the clerk. So in churches, a lot of times that's taken very lightly. It shouldn't be taken very lightly. You have some responsibility and you might have to answer for some things. That's actually a little trickier position than a trustee. You basically don't do anything until the church tells them what to do. A clerk actually will have to answer for things if they're not recorded properly because it is legal documents. We have these business meetings and we're just as, we're kind of a country church at the end of the city. So we're fairly informal. It's not a big deal. Nobody ever fusses or fights, nothing like that. We could take that for granted, but she's got to record this, and that's a legal binding document. If there ever is anything in the future that happens and a decision was made, those documents tell us when it was made and who was present. And it's very important because we actually had a problem where when the property was refinanced before we paid off all the debt, and it was long before some of you were here, a good part of you weren't here, at least during that time. When that was done, we don't even have documentation of that, which, if you know her, there's no way she didn't record this. What happened was, I don't think it was done underhanded or anything like that. I think it was just rushed. And so it wasn't as official. So we actually had, you all incurred a debt as a church without a record of it. And I'm not even sure how somebody could actually have. So here's what would have happened in that case. This is why it's important. If you sign that paper, Felix on in here and sign that thing. Okay. Do you understand that if, in that case, since the church didn't have a record of the meeting, now the trustees that signed it are responsible? Do you see the difference? Because there's no legal record of the meeting having happened. Now that's dangerous. That's why we need to keep everything up to speed and make sure everything goes according to plan. That puts people at very big risk. If you would have defaulted on the loan, they could have come for the trustees on that and said, you pay us. And legally, they would have been on the hook. So it is very dangerous. Okay. It says in the Articles of Incorporation that we actually have authority to fix bylaws. And we can change bylaws. So this gives us the authority to do bylaws and change them. Anytime we change bylaws, this says all you got to do is change them according to what your bylaws say. And so we don't have to file that with the state again. All we got to do is change them. But it's no small thing. To change them, it's always so. There's always a reason why the bylaws are the way they are. I'm just saying we don't have to have a whole new filing because of that. We also can amend things. Here also we have, what if the church were to dissolve? At the dissolution of the church, for any reason, upon all debts being satisfied, all assets would be distributed to the Louisiana Baptist Children's Home. Okay? So what happens in a corporation when the corporation dissolves, but there's outstanding debt? Well, so somebody's got to pay it. Well, that's a problem. But we would, in the case that we wouldn't have it, we would have only assets. Well, those assets have to be somewhere. And that's why it's also important to make this a state bank, because they get to make sure the assets get doled out. Otherwise, they sit here. Did you know that if you had 700 people on a roll and you didn't have a dissolution clause as to where the money were going, and you got down to 5 people in attendance and you could no longer hold the doors open, that if you didn't have a dissolution clause, that you would be legally obligated to dole the money out by each person? You would divide by 700 members, you would have to divide out the assets to them. Even if it's somebody that hadn't been here for 38 years, they get a part of it.
If you have debt, you have to do the same thing with debt.
No. So the dissolution clause says only after the debt's satisfied. Now the good thing is when you have assets, like the kind of assets we do, it would take a pretty significant debt to outweigh the assets. There are churches that are like that though, right? And we that's one of the things we never want to do, is become one of those Like yeah, that's a really bad circumstance, so that's a very good point. But we will do our dad level best to never be in that circumstance. But, yes,
In the case of, you said the paperwork that wasn't done right, there wasn't proper documentation, and that could fall back on the trustees, any legal ramifications. The trustees at the time of signing, or the trustees that are...
those who put their names on this, because they were the ones who authorized it. So even if they weren't a part of the church anymore, their name's on the document. And now it does be. So you could literally have done that, moved to another state for a job or something, you could still be alive. You understand? Like, we go over these things for a reason. Like, it is important that we mind the things. There's a certain way things need to be. We can't be loosey-goosey. All those are good questions, good points. So that's kind of how we do the articles. That moves us on to the bylaws. Now look, we're not going to go through all the bylaws tonight. I'm just going to go over a couple of things in the bylaws and just to kind of show you what that looks like. Like our statement of faith. This is interesting as we talk about like the church. What do we say about our author? We believe in the authority of the scriptures, right? We said our confession, our adopted confession is the Baptist Faith and Message 2000 edition. And that's actually in the articles as well. So both of those things are in the articles. Now we come to the bylaws and it fleshes that out more. Okay? Because it's a longer document. So it's going to flesh it out more. So it's going to say the Holy Bible is the inspired Word of God, is the basis for any statement of faith, and the church subscribes to the doctrinal statement of the Baptist Faith and Message 2000 edition. We covenant together as a body, committed to sharing the good news of salvation to the lost. And the ordinances of the church are baptism and the Lord's Supper. That's just good old Baptist polity. But then when you come to this next section, it says something about doctrine. Under the section of the character of the church, it says this: the church receives the scriptures as its final authority in faith and practice. So if somebody's arguing about a doctrine, where do we settle it? In the Bible. Now that's just common Christian sense, right? Now, here's the problem with that. People have tried to do that for centuries. And most of the time they come to a disagreement somewhere on interpreting it differently. So if all you put in there was, we're going to let the Bible be our faith final word, well, we're interpreting the same passage two different ways. We got a problem with it, right? So we actually have something for that. Our doctrinal confession is the Baptist Faith and Message 2000, which tells anybody this is basically where we stand on doctrinal matters. Okay? That helps us. They already see that we believe in the inspiration and the authority of Scripture. Now they see the kind of doctrine that we have. And then it further says the congregation as a whole reserves the final authority to interpret the Scripture. So what happens is this. If we're having, so we get to, as a whole, that means if there's a doctrinal controversy, the church has to meet and counsel and has to agree on how we interpret the Scriptures. So if, let's say this side of the room is interpreting that women can be pastors, and this side is interpreting that it is not true. Well, that's a real problem if it's 50-50. The Baptist Faith and Message would settle that argument because it addresses that argument very specifically. What if it's something that it doesn't address specifically? Then you have a bigger problem. Now the congregation is on their own to decide. They don't have a statement of faith to decide. Now they're on their own to decide. So how you do that is you meet, you counsel, the majority gets it. Because that is, again, when I talked about the mark of Baptist doctrine as far as the church goes, remember we talked about the priesthood of believers? We're believing in God's people to be able to make those kinds of decisions. That's why we're congregational. That's why we believe in the priesthood of believers. We invest the people of God. We invest in the people of God this responsibility and authority, believing they can make the right one because the Spirit of God is in it. You understand? So because of that, that's as close as we can get. I realize that still might be a problem. You know why? Because it still might be 50-50, right? But it's almost assuredly not going to happen. You can study all the doctrinal history you want to, and that particular instance with that many that many buffers, you won't find that kind of thing happening. People, generally speaking, come to a better consensus than that.
Do members that are minors have the same vote?
They absolutely do. That's a funny thing, yes. I don't know how much we actually talked about that in closer meetings and then out loud. I don't, because you all were in the meetings when we talked. So, and see, you were in closer meetings. So I'm not sure how much I think we left that alone for the most part, simply because I wouldn't see why not. I mean, you know, look, I don't care if this kid over here is 11. It's their pastor too they're voting on. Right? I mean, that does matter. We are not going, and that matters to us. We're trying to make sure that kids and youth all are respected and brought in to be part of what we're doing. So we want to say yes. And we always think, you know, parents, and look, if you have kids, I don't know what to tell you, because it's hard not to lead your kids in a direction. If, you know, I mean, you're supposed to guide them, right, to what you think is biblically proper. So I don't know how that works in that case. I mean, what if your 11-year-old disagrees with your vote?
Yeah.
If they have equal authority in the church and we still believe in the priesthood of believers, there's a little rub there, right?
Or if you got 6 or 8 kids, you know, your vote counts a little more than you tell them to vote with you.
You know, we're just getting started. I mean, there's a lot of things you could touch on that could be here, but I have never seen it be a problem. The only thing I have seen a problem is the opposite, where people wanted to cut all the kids and youth out of any votes and activities. And that's wrong. That's ludicrous. They are part of the church. We always say, oh, they're the church tomorrow. No, they're church now. This is the church today. They're now part of the church, not tomorrow. They need to learn leadership. They need to learn responsibility. They need to learn to invest. And if we shelter them from that, don't allow them to, they don't care. And they get 18, they learn not to care about what happens. And they don't have. So we actually allow them to serve on committees once they turn, 16? 16 years old. It's what we've done. Once 16, they can be on a committee. Shoot, they can head a committee at 16. And we invest in the committee that calls those committees into being, to give them a responsibility and trust them with that. And the church votes on it, but we entrust them to bring us to now. All right, so those are outstanding questions. All right, so in our bylaws, it talks about us being autonomous under the lordship of Christ. In other words, we're not independent of his leadership. That's what it's trying to say. It tells us specifically how you join: by profession of faith and request for baptism. So if somebody's a new Christian and they haven't been baptized, that's one way. By promise of a letter from another church like ours. So if it's a church that is like doctrine that sends letters, they can transfer letters, okay, if they request that. Also, there could be a time that they've had, like, I don't know, we take things by statement of faith sometimes. Let's say you were part of a church 30 years ago. The church doesn't exist anymore. You've attended several places but never moved your letter. We're not going to say you can't be a member, right? So we take you by statement of faith. That's okay. And finally, a person comes for membership will receive spiritual counsel from church leadership, after which formal membership of the candidate is determined by the church vote at a business meeting. And so this is something we want to instill, is like, we want people to come and tell us when they're interested so we can talk to them. I told you the story about somebody that came and just a few weeks later left, and I get an email saying, well, you all don't believe women are basically any count at all, right? Well, goodness, that's not true. And first, I don't even know where that idea came from. That come from somewhere else, not us, or any document that we're attached to. But it also, that could have been fleshed out more. I don't know. I spent a lot of time on that thought. I spent a lot of time with women, which was frustrating. But it also told me, look, they have a right to feel that way. That's up to them. I can't be mad at them. It is what it is. They don't have to be a member here. That's up to them. But what we do need is we need to help people understand. We want you to know what we believe up front, so we're transparent. We also want to know this, that you understand you're not coming here to be served. You're coming here to serve. Like, you're not coming here to be a consumer. You come here to work. You come here to serve God. And so we break the consumer mentality of like, I need a church to minister to me. Okay, well, we minister to one another inevitably from time to time. Of course we do. That's just a natural part of Christian life. We assume that's true. But I'm here to minister for you to minister to me, and I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to show up. I'm going to watch. I'm going to complain. I'm going to critique. I'm going to hold my money back when things aren't going the way I want them to. And, that kind of thing. We want people ahead of time. We'll just circumvent all that by saying, look, you come here, what are you going to do? You need to get plugged in. You need to start learning people's names. You need to get around fellowship with people. You need to find things in the church that you can do. And a lot of times it's little things that help. Like we have the Haiti auction. Okay? One of the first things you all came to was the Haiti auction. Right? I remember that. Didn't y'all come to the Haiti auction this year? And see, they've been a member less than a year. So sometimes it's those types of things that people begin to integrate in the church and understand and get a flavor of what the church is about. And that's very helpful. So, and we talked for, a couple hours one afternoon after you've been coming here for a while. So we do counsel people the best we can ahead of time. And sometimes that's all you can do. I mean, sometimes it doesn't work out for one or the other parties. In our bylaws, we talk about parliamentary rules. Let's talk about this one. It's really important. Church unity is important. Do I really have to say that we agree on that? Parliamentary rules of procedure. Robert's Rules of Order. Sometimes I've been in churches that have been like, well, that's just a bunch of nonsense. That's man-made rules. Well, you know what? If you have church at 11 o'clock on Sunday morning, it's a man-made rule, isn't it? Now, that's silly to say things like that. Why would you have parliamentary procedure? We very loosely follow this. We do not follow it really closely. However, if there's a controversial issue, we will follow it very close. We will follow it to the T in order to be fair. Because what it will do is it will give everyone a fair hearing to express what they feel. It will give it a fair amount of time, but not overly fair. You can't just go on and on for a 6-hour visit. We're not going to do that. We're going to wrap it up nice and tidy. I did this one time when there was a really, really controversial thing in a church. I felt like it was going to go half and half on somebody coming to be a music person. And so the night of the business meeting, inevitably people showed up and some of them weren't members. So the first thing I did is say, this is a member, you can be here for a meeting and not be a member. That's not going to be a problem. You need to understand, you can't vote, you can't speak. This is a membership issue. Membership votes on the budget to pay this person. It's only fair that members are the ones to speak to it. So first thing is we remove that. And second, I said, okay, according to parliamentary rules, as a moderator, I can set particular parameters. We're going to have 4 that could speak for it, 4 that could speak against. You're going to have 2 minutes each. Then we will have a vote. And it was what it was. And to be honest with you, it almost quelched the controversy. Like, it was a reasonably fast business meeting. We got through it. We voted. The person was actually voted in at a little bit higher percentage than I think they would have had we not been careful that night. And it was never a controversy after that, was it? It never came up again. And so if you do it, it allows fairness. That's why we have that in there, okay? You may not see Robert's Rules of Order followed strictly in business meetings all the time here. If you do, you know that we feel like this could get a little bit, touch and go as far as people's emotions or whatever. So let's try to take the best we can and make it as objective as we possibly can. That's a way to do that, okay? Also the fiscal year. This is odd. This is a Baptist thing too. Okay, our fiscal year runs January 1st to December 31st, just the way it should, right? But our church year doesn't. Our church year runs September 1st. It starts then, and it's silly, and I'm almost to the point where I'm like, you know, I wish we'd have just changed that. But here's the way they did that. Sunday school. The church years, you promote according to grade. And since a lot of the people are 21 and under in the church, you're promoting up. So it was easier for Baptists, who were basically the first people to really adopt Sunday school model in the way that it has been, to do this. That's why it's different. And it's confusing to me to this day. I've probably asked about it. And people think, you're the one who should know the most about this. I don't remember. I hate that, but it is what it is. I can't help it. It's one of those things. I guess it'll always be that way. I don't know. All right, so let's see. Anything else in the bylaw? I don't think there's a significant other thing in the bylaws. It tells us how to amend it. And so that's kind of our bylaws. Then we have our policies. So on this tier level, we have articles chartered with the state, gives us kind of an idea of who we are and how we're going to do things. That authorize us to write the bylaws that are a much more lengthy document, but not too in-depth. And then the policies. The policy manual is actually able to be changed. It's fluid. The policy manual, in some cases, won't even have to have a vote or something. If we're going to change something about the children's ministry, about like, you know, well, we're going to change our ratios. Instead of 4 to 1, we're going to make it 5 to 1. And everybody in the children's department and all the staff are on board, and we don't think there's going to be an issue. There's no, we don't even have it in the policies where that has to be voted for. It can just be changed, okay? And that's because otherwise you're just having business meetings all the time for, again, ticky-tack stuff, and it just wears people out. So we do have some things in the policies that kind of help structure who we are. One of the things is, I got this little org chart, so to speak. It's a little different for us than it would be for a corporation, because you don't have, okay, at no point on here do you see a boss in Baptist life. Remember last week? Who's the CEO? I said the congregation, right? So every person on this chart is part of the congregation. So there's no boss on the chart. Well, how do you do things with no boss on the chart? We have to have a way to do it. You've got to find a way to administrate it. So here's how we do it. The congregation as a whole is this. You know, all the members that vote. Well, how does that pertain to pastors? Well, who votes on the pastor? The congregation does. So even when the pastors lead, then the congregation has told them to lead. They've given them that authority. It had to come from the congregation, and nobody else can give it to them. So even that is a back and forth. You see, it's kind of a two-sided coin. So that's the whole congregation. And the way we have it set up here is we've divided it in two ways. This side over here is about leadership and administration. This side over here is about ministry and finances, okay? So over here, you have your pastors, and in this case, it's now me, Frog, and Felix, okay? And your teams. Team meetings happen once a quarter, right? If you want to know, if you want to suggest something about missions, come to the missions team, missions and ministry team. If you're teaching a class or something like that, you got some things to share, you can come to the education team meeting. If you we have a worship team. You know who the worship team is? It's the people who are currently on the worship team. The people who are currently singing and practicing together. That's who the worship team is. So, and that can be fluid because, I mean, what if somebody says, well, I don't want to sing for 6 months? I mean, Miss Tammy took a break for a little while. That doesn't mean she has to be voted back on the worship team. When she wanted to sing again, then she told everyone, and she came back and started practicing. Therefore, she was part of the worship team. There's not a change of that. Okay? All of you in here that are members have an opportunity to be part of any of these teams. So, those teams meet once a quarter. We don't have business meetings where we decide what Sunday school literature ought to be taught and stuff like that. Wow, we'd be here forever. Once a quarter, we'd be here for 6 hours on a... Nobody wants to do that. That's silly. That isn't... Business meetings are business. That's how we do it. If it's money, it goes there. If it's not, it don't go there. There's no reason for it to go there. Okay? And it separates things. It makes finances and ministry two different things, which they should be. So the teams are really important because what happens at the teams, really, even though there's this whole overarching
vision for the church that comes in our mission statement and what we're trying to accomplish, those team meetings decide how specific things are going to be accomplished. And then, like, for instance, if they say, okay, well, we need this going on, it's going to take a committee to act on that, then that gets thrown from the team to the committees, okay? Then the committee meets, they bring it to Cindy to file as a staff person, as a clerk, okay? She files it, and puts it on the agenda to be brought to the next business meeting, where it goes to the congregation. That wouldn't even bypasses me. I don't go to committee meetings. I don't even go there. Don't have to. The congregation has spoken. I'm with the teams. I know what's going on there. These two know what's going on there. And then the teams make that decision, throw it to the committee. So everybody gets some piece of this. Do you understand? And some things bypassed. Any pastors get bypassed at some point because that's been entrusted to everybody. So if I say I don't like the design of that committee, I don't think that Holly and Jason would ever get along. I think that that would just be a terrible thing. I don't want it. That ain't up to me. The committee on committee got to decide that. So for better or worse, Jason and Holly get to hash out all their anger and hostility toward one another. And I don't even think they know each other, so that was a safe way. Okay, so having said that, that's do you understand how, like, we really are congregation? What I'm saying is we are incredibly congregation. And we're ridiculously transparent. You don't have to wonder what's going on behind closed doors because it's coming into the front or into the team meetings and committee meetings and the business meetings. There isn't anything else. Okay? What we do, we're doing. You know what we're doing. If you're here and you're observing, you know what we're doing and you got a part of it. Okay? So that is how we do these things as far as congregationally by our own policies. Let's see. There are all kinds of things we have. We have deacons and pastors, which we will do later. One of the things I want to cover, and this is the last thing we'll cover on this stuff, is the building use. Like, okay, this has been something that you wouldn't believe how difficult building use is in a church. Okay? And everybody and their brother wants to use your building for something. Okay? This one wants to run a political rally about it. This one wants this. This one wants that. And next thing you know, you don't have, what you have is a town hall or you have community using your property for their own purposes, and the gospel is completely removed from that. You understand? Like, literally our articles say we're a gospel corporation. Therefore, what we have here has to meet that requirement. So we have building use policy that does, in fact, tighten that up. So it says the facilities belonging to First Baptist Milton are for use of activities directly related to church events and membership. No non-members can have use of the facilities for any reason. That doesn't mean non-members can't be a part of something that goes on here. It means that a non-member from the community can come in and say, hey, I want your building on this date. And then we say, hey, give me a $200 deposit and make sure it's clean. I've done that before. Man, no, you don't want that. That ain't nothing but a fight with the community, and it's a nightmare, and it never works.
Isn't it illegal?
It isn't, as long as there's an agreement, but it should actually say, technically, ethically, it should say donation. And you bring up what is in this policy. You can't pay a nonprofit to use a nonprofit stuff, or it's not a nonprofit, right? We actually have this right now, and the interesting thing is I'm proud of all the people here. I am, because we have our stuff together. Classical Conversations Homeschool is a good example of this, okay? They lost 2 places to meet. Part of the reason is because the people were trying to stir up trouble and saying, oh, it's probably non-Christians not wanting Christian organizations to operate. And that, you would be surprised how much of that actually does go on. So what happens is they're calling them and saying, basically, y'all can't meet in these churches because they're nonprofits. And it's because Classical Conversations were saying, here, we'll give you a little bit of something for the use of the building. So they approached us, and in 3 minutes we told them how to do it. Now, the bigger churches couldn't tell them that.
But we could, because we've got our stuff together. Here's how it works. First of all, you can donate anything. I can't stop somebody from putting anything in an offering plate, and I can't tell them to put anything in an offering plate. Not one of you, not for any reason, not anybody in the world, not anybody in this community. What people give here is up to them. I don't care if it's Nancy Pelosi. Well, that's also an inside joke here with me. But anyway, I don't care if it's somebody like that. If they want to come give you your money and say it's a donation, well, if it's a donation, let me tell you, I'll take the devil's money today. Okay? I mean, you know, I'll take Mitch McConnell's too, and he's also the devil, right? We all know that too. But the point is that we can take donations. We get to take donations. It's okay. So all we said was, is this a ministry? It is a ministry. They're very much gospel-oriented and gospel-centered in what they approach in education. They teach this. We have members that are part of it, right? So she heads up the ministry to allow them to come here. They donate however they want to, or don't donate however they want to. And I don't even keep track of it. I don't know. You'll do that. I don't know. But it works out. And they're able to do that here. Because, no, we can't take money as a nonprofit. So when we want to have a fundraiser, we shouldn't go to the corner here and say, fish plates for sale. Because you're risking a lot. We're a nonprofit. Even if you say donation, guess what you also did? You put yourself at risk because you're not inspected by the United States Department of Agriculture.
Oh.
Okay? You have a problem. If somebody gets sick, we are completely liable. Completely liable. Do you understand? So that's one of the reasons we don't do that. So if somebody says, hey, why don't we have more food fundraisers? Because when somebody gets food poisoning, I don't want to lose my house. How about that? You know, and I don't want us all to lose our stuff because we're coming after the whole corporation in a case like that. And there are people out there glad to do it.
It's a multi-billion-dollar a year industry in the United States, suing churches.
And yeah, I would really like to know how many billions of dollars of assets that churches have in the United States. It's a big thing, and people have figured this out. So part of the reason we got our stuff together is to protect ourselves from things like that. So that is how we do this. So you can use this facility for any ministry purpose. So if Kenneth says, hey, I want the men of the church to have a brotherhood supper. I just want to get together and just fellowship and cook fish. Now that's different. You're not charging the public. You can cook fish anytime you want to like that. And it's a ministry of the church. You don't have, I mean, all you got to do is see if it's open on the calendar. That's it. If there's a calendar date open, you're welcome to do it. And so, like Visa membership have privileges, I guess, but you know, you got to look at it that way. You're a member of this corporation. You have a vested interest here that you are allowed to take advantage of. And so we need to make sure that we kind of keep that out there with people. All right. Any questions about bylaws, articles, and things? All right. Now let's go to the next slide. Sam, the first slide we've actually moved on. We've heard about the 3 C's, which were covenant, constitution, and what? That's okay. It's in your notes there, so that's okay. So here's what the 3 A's are. Let's go.
Confession.
Confession. And what is their confession? Baptist, faith, the message of 2000. Right? Okay. Very good. Thank you. So there is, the 3 A's begin with attendance. How much does attendance mean? It means a lot. Don't get me wrong when I say that, okay? Because then everybody's like, well, he's mad when I have to go, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. Nobody here is going to get mad at anybody because we have vacations or business to take care of. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying attendance is crucial, though. You cannot believe the snowball effect attendance has on a church. If we had 6 Sundays in a row with 50, did you know that it would probably take us 6 months to get back over 70 again? Statistics do not lie. It snowballs. Yet, if you have 6 months over 80, which we basically have. Now, it's almost never under 70. We got under 70 one week, and it was the weekend of Mardi Gras when a lot of people were doing a lot of different things, and then rebounded right back over 80 again, because it is a snowball. Attendance really, your attendance matters not only for your spiritual growth, but for the health of the church. It is crucial. It is very important. Sometimes you're not going to be here. How many times has Gene missed, even after all the times he's been sick and everything like that? Not very much. He didn't feel good Sunday. If Gene says, I don't feel good, I have to miss, what should we say? We're going to pray for you, because we know he doesn't feel good. Okay? And Andy goes to the camp. How far you drive?
About 2.5 hours.
2.5 hours. So he drives 2.5 hours, and he'll leave at 4 o'clock in the morning, get here for Sunday school. Chad and Stephanie and them do the same thing sometimes. And I don't expect everybody to do that every Sunday. I'm not saying that, and I'm not trying to toot any horns. I'm trying to use examples of saying, like, it costs everybody to be here committed to this. But if we all invest as much as we can, not where we can't, nobody wants that. We shouldn't be at the church 7 days a week. Something's wrong if we are, okay? But invest where you can. It does matter. So that's one of the C's. So attendance to all these kinds of things. We have Bible studies, discipling opportunities, services, fellowships, all kinds of things that we can attend. And if we have a funeral here, because let's say that, I pass away next week and my lovely wife wants to have my wake here at the church. She's like, I'm glad he didn't see me. So if I pass away and Melissa's like, hey, let's have the wake over here at the church. Please come visit me. No, be like, who is that sang that? Bring my flowers now, like while I'm alive. Okay. If a church member passes away and you can do anything about it, you should be at a wake, even if it's 5 minutes. Do the best you can, right? That's attendance also. That's ministry to your brothers and sisters. Okay? That counts as attendance. How about next day's attitudes? We have the most important mission in the world. We have a church structure from which to work. What about our attitudes? How will we get along as sinners being sanctified? And that's what we are. We're sinners being sanctified. We're not there yet. Okay? We got to find a way to get along and with different opinions, different perspectives and everything else, and have unity. And it's all done by prayer and attitude. That's exactly how it's done. And the passage that I want to stick with you, and the reason I've saved it all this time, is because this is the passage that I've really pressed here so much. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interest of the others. That'll just settle the dispute 99 times out of 100, right there. It will. It's like, I'm in disagreement. I can't seem to get over this with this person. How about this? How about I make myself last place? That usually will do it. So we all have that in us, that responsibility to do the best we can like that. That's a huge passage. In fact, and this is something I encourage you to do on your own, is go through Philippians 2 as a whole chapter, because that chapter is about that. And another place you find that especially is Romans 14 through 16. It is enormous in there. All the ways that he's telling us to live with one another in peace as much as is possible, right? So we've got to remember that. And the final way is this: accepting responsibility. So many churches run on the 20/80 rule. What's that? I bet somebody here knows it.
When you get to work, many people's there.
That's exactly right. 20% do everything, 80% do nothing. That churches run on that constant.
That Romans 14 through 16, you said?
Yeah. I'm sorry, you need a pen? You need something to write down? So ask everyone ask if everyone in the church was as committed as I was, and not one more, sorry about the misspelling, not one bit more committed, would the church be able to flourish? Now that's a good question. Would the church be able to flourish as everybody in the church was as committed as I was and no more? That's big. Now, sometimes in seasons of life it's difficult. I mean, look at Randy over here. He's had a pretty bad year. Okay, sometimes he hadn't been able to be here, although he's been pretty good about being here regardless. And he has simply not been able to help it at times, not being here. There's nothing within your power to do it. What if you work and there's nothing you can do, you know? That is what it is, okay? You're not accepting responsibility. We all have a life. We all have a lot to do. Poor Stephanie, most of the time she comes in here, she's looking at her watch and looking at the clock, or looking at the phone, because that's the nature of the work she does, okay? It's just the way it is. That's the way life is. We all have responsibilities in the world. We all have things to take care of. And we don't ever want anybody to feel guilty about doing the necessities in life. Don't feel guilty about that. If anybody ever makes you feel guilty about that, here, then please tell us, because that is one thing we're trying hard to say. You can't be here for everything. How can you be in Massachusetts and here at the same time? It ain't possible, is it? But you do have to provide for your family, or you're worse than an infidel, right? That's what the scripture says. So in that sense, he looked for things. This was the best opportunity he had to provide for his family. He took it. He did the right thing. It's hard on all of them, okay? It's just the way we are. When sometimes people have businesses to run, and that's a lot different. When you have businesses to run, a lot of different moving parts to that, a lot of people dependent on that. You almost get a choice. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it halfway. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to be limited. Well, you know what? We should do everything as unto the Lord. That's okay. And that's important that we recognize that, okay? School, sometimes you got school going on. That's hard. And your time is short. We understand that. Just let you know. But accept responsibility where you can. Do the things you can do. And if you're limited, that means it's very important for you to jump on those few things you can do and do them well. And then go about your business. And we're not going to make you feel bad at all. We're here for you in that sense, because as you serve the church, you will be served. And I mean that. Like, we're going to be serious about that. And we're going to protect people who are doing in the church the best they can. So, let's see. How about this? A membership pledge. We did this in the class. Gosh, that was 2018, early 2018. That's been a long time ago. We did a membership class. Covered some of the same stuff in there. Here's the membership pledge. I'm gonna leave it up here tonight. You can come by and get it if you're brave enough. So, it's my duty and privilege to rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. In other words, it's my duty and privilege to celebrate and to be there for people both. Okay? When our kids graduate, when we get promotions, and when we're able to have retirement finally after all this, whatever it is, we celebrate with people all kinds of things in their life. We weep with them by being empathetic with people and the place they are, meeting them and the needs that they're going through, being there for them in the midst of the storm. Okay, you've got to be able to do that, and that's another one. Like, think of others as more important than yourself. Well, this one is like right there with it. Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. How about this? Be a team player. That means, like, you know, there's a bigger thing than any one person. Be a team player. Give generously. Serve when asked. That don't mean you can do everything. That's not what we're saying. Okay, that means when you can do it, do it. And that means, like, if... let me ask you something. Do you think we should have to be asked? Sometimes maybe no. But I think sometimes that's easy to say. You shouldn't have to be asked to take the trash out when it's be taken out, right? Okay. You may have to be asked to do some other things, especially as you come into a new church, because you're trying to figure things out. And so we will try to include people. We may actually seek people out to ask. And we're not trying to obligate anybody. We're given opportunity. Okay? Make others more important than myself. Refuse to gossip. Correct those who do. You know what will stop gossip right now? When somebody says, Randy really didn't get hurt. He didn't have no surgery. That's all a farce, man. He borrowed Todd's collar. I recognize that one. That's when Todd had it on. Smells like biofreeze and everything. And so, then, you know, somebody says something like that to you, say, you know what, I don't believe that, and I don't think that's something to be said. That's not okay. You can't just pacify gossip. You quelch it, you stop it. You go ahead and say, no, nope. It'll stop. It will stop. The only way gossip goes is if it churns and churns and churns. If you allow it to keep going for long enough, then you got a problem. You can't stop. Cooperate with leadership as long as leadership's not biblically in the wrong. That's terrible to have to say because you're the leader saying it, but the fact is still biblically right. Hebrews says to respect your elders. They've been put over you in order to care for your soul. It's a spiritual care that they're trying to give you. So respect that. If they're biblically wrong, that's something different. Okay? But if they aren't, then you need to follow. Cooperate with all members as long as they're not biblically wrong. So it doesn't just stop at pastors or any other church leadership. Cooperate with other members if they're not biblically wrong. It doesn't matter if you think they're in a particular leadership role. It's no different. Respect them too. Okay? And then respect order and reject chaos. Just, don't let chaos happen. Respect order. Study and pray as a church member. That'll fix a lot of wrongs. Be like Jesus in the world and in the church. Share the gospel. Participate in meetings. That means team meetings, business meetings, stuff like that. We want you here when you can be. Refuse to be a consumer. No, understand, promote the vision of the church. Refuse to get nostalgia. We don't have that problem very much here because, Cindy and Felix is the only people in the room who's been here like 20 years plus, I think. You haven't been here 20 years yet, have you? I know you've been, but you've been here off and on.
Off and on, yeah.
So that we don't have a lot of nostalgia because people here basically all come within the last 5 to 10 years, some in the last 1 or 2. So embrace transformation as a church continues to live because you know what? Things will change and things will move and they will transform. They will be different. We can't be stuck in anything. Be accountable for my participation. Know what's going on. Ask appropriate questions in appropriate settings. That's hard to do. Because then you got to figure out what the appropriate settings are. Sometimes people don't mean anything by asking questions in inappropriate settings. They're not trying to ask the wrong question. So it's like this. If you have a question about the ministry and the leadership and administration of the church, go to the leadership and administration of the church. If you have a question about the preschool, go to somebody who takes care of the preschool ministry. It's stuff like that. Know who to go to. And that helps you know. Be accountable for participation. Be a faithful attender. Represent the church with joy and spiritual integrity. Sing with joy during worship. Gosh, I wish everybody sang. And I can't make anybody sing. I'm not going to be mad if somebody does. But it makes a big difference if more people sing. Don't you all agree? And so when you come to worship, ask yourself this. Would I want to go to a church that's as silent as I am in worship? And so that would not always be pretty. So we need to sing where we can, okay? Embrace new attenders and new members. Embrace, embrace, embrace. We were new attenders and new members at one time. And that's really important. The best example I have is when I first started here, Wednesday nights in the kitchen. There weren't very many people that would meet then. There were quite a few that came for the other things, But we had the family meal, and it was always pizza. And I think, didn't you bring it like every week? It was. Now look, they were used to a certain amount of people showing up. And then I was like, well, do I eat the pizza? Do I not? Am I supposed to ask to eat the pizza? Do I pay to eat the pizza? I didn't know. And it was weird. So thankfully, it was an environment that was friendly enough where it only took me 1 or 2 weeks to, I see what's going on. And then I didn't feel intimidated anymore. But that's the way people feel when they walk in the door. They feel out of place. Okay. Chelsea, do you ever feel, you looked away, you feel at home?
Oh, yeah.
That's good, okay. We need to measure that. We should probably ask people who have started attending in the last year, stuff like that. And that helps us to measure it, right? And we shouldn't be afraid to hear the answer. So these are, if you want to look at this is big, okay? And this don't just go for members, it goes for anybody in leadership. So if you'd like to have this, it's up here. Any questions about how we do things as a church? Yes.
You mentioned about policy earlier. Where is a member acquire these policies?
We talked about that today, and we debated bringing in a budget policy manual. It is a little bit long, and that's okay. We will give everybody one that wants one. So, Cindy, you want to take it from here?
Whoever wants a policy, raise your hand so I can write your name down.
I just like to have one on the kids ministry and stuff, just where I'm like breaking the rules.
Okay. So Adam and Tammy,
It's not in the deacon binder.
it should be in your deacon binder. I put a copy of it in there.
Okay, listen there.
We can get one also for her, though, too.
Yeah, I'll have it.
And then Penny. And
Anybody else? I can email it to you. I have a PDF form. So if that works.
okay. All right. We also, if you don't have bylaws and you want bylaws, we have that. We actually have copies of that tonight. So if you want our bylaws, we'll put that on the front with the membership pledge. Come by and get those. And really, it'd be good for everybody to have it. But like you said about children, we have specific protections in our policies for children. And I told you all that, like, you're a good example of people like, I told them, if they have kids, they need to know. We have background checks. If you work with kids, if you're going to be at VBS, you're not going to go to VBS till you go to training to get a background check, because we want everybody prepared to handle the kids, and we want everybody background checked. Now, it's been a long time since I wore the silver bracelets, but I have, okay? That's not on my record anymore. It's been too many years. If somebody's worn the silver bracelet and they're afraid, if it's not about anything violent or anything regarding children or anything like that, then it's not going to matter. So some people, it's kind of like we get nervous when we share our information with people. Credit reports, same thing, right? We don't do credit reports, by the way. We don't do anything like that. We don't have a reason to, okay? And you would have to sign authorization. We don't have a way to do that without that. So you don't have to ever worry about that. We will background check. But if you have kids, what you want, with all the abuse that happens in churches with kids, what you want, and so we should want. And I appreciate this church so much because we have not had problems with it.
There's no downside to that. Anybody that would complain about that, they definitely have issues. There's no reason not to have that.
There's a flag on there regarding something with sexual crime with children. That's the only reason. You're exactly right. Now, we know that it can't catch everything. We've had this conversation at length many times. What if somebody's never been caught? What if someone went to trial and never got a conviction? Well, that's not a big flag. You're not going to know that. We can't dig up everything. There's a possibility somebody could leak through. So we have things like, we have mixed genders. You can't be in the same family. And so you can if there's 3 people. Like me and Melissa and Cindy could do a youth night together because we're husband and wife, but she's not. You see? So there's a conflicting testimony if we went to court, somebody not related. We do this stuff in order to protect the kids and give not only background checks, but create a safe culture. And we talk about it like religious. You have no idea how much we talk about this. There's not a week that has went by since I've been at this church when we did not talk about this. We are very adamant, and we're still going to miss some things. I realize that, but we try really hard, okay? And so, just so you know, but that's part of our policy, okay? All right, well, I'm going to put these things up front. Please do me this favor. Study Philippians 2 this week and Romans 14 through 16, because those are beautiful passages about how we get along in unity as sinners being sanctified. Me and Matt were talking before, and we were talking about how we're just broken people trying to get better and having the Lord heal us and grow us. All of us are this way. We're all in that same boat. There's going to be times when we disagree, and we should not be afraid of that. And we don't have to be afraid of that. Everybody's afraid of conflict. Conflict handled right is healthy. So we shouldn't be afraid to disagree. That's okay. Sometimes it causes self-inflection too, does it not? And that's okay. So,
Somebody learned something from it. One or the other.
and ultimately, the point is that we need to be able to disagree and in a healthy way. Okay, so if you come to a meeting and we're voting on something and you don't agree with the budget, you need to be able to vote no. And if somebody votes no, nobody should be coming to them and shaming them for voting no. That's silly. Now, if they vote no every single year, there's probably something else going on, right? But it should not bother us. And we have to be able to disagree. All right, that's as much as we can cover without beating it to death. So we'll start talking about a little bit different things next week. All right? Okay, Chad, pray for us.
Dear Father, thank you so much for allowing us to come here, talk about your word, and talk about church, the way it's supposed to be done, and us trying to do it every Lord. We thank you for Brother Todd preparing this, giving it to us where we can do it perfectly for you, Lord, as good as we can. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Forgive us for all those things that we let you down on, Lord, and you guide us in the future and help us do what glorifies you, Lord.